My name is Geraldine, and I'm 58 years old. I never thought my son-in-law Trevor would betray me so publicly. After all I'd done for him and my daughter Allison, including paying their mortgage every month. At his promotion party, he grabbed the microphone and said those words that cut through me like a knife. The mother-in-law only came because she heard there would be good food. I smiled through my pain. And on Monday, I cancelled the mortgage check. Before I share the most humiliating moment of my life, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever been taken advantage of by someone you helped. I've been a widow for 10 years now. My husband Robert passed away after a brief battle with cancer, leaving me to navigate life alone. Since then, I've worked diligently at First National Bank, climbing from teller to loan officer, through decades of dedicated service. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I've been careful with my money, living within my means, in the modest 3-bedroom home Robert and I purchased 30 years ago in a quiet suburb of Minneapolis. My daughter Allison is my only child, the only family I have left. We've always been close, especially after losing Robert. She was 22 when her father died, just finishing college with a business degree. I poured everything into supporting her through that difficult time, making sure she had what she needed to succeed. When Allison introduced me to Trevor 4 years ago, I was genuinely happy for her. He seemed like a catch, tall, handsome, with a warm smile and firm handshake. He worked in marketing for a small local company, nothing prestigious but stable. Trevor had excellent manners during that first dinner at my home. He complimented my pot roast, asked thoughtful questions about my garden, and even offered to help with the dishes. I remember thinking, Allison found a good one. In the beginning, Trevor treated me with respect. He would call occasionally, just to check in, invite me to Sunday dinners, and remember my birthday with thoughtful cards. When he proposed to Allison after a year of dating, I was delighted. The wedding was beautiful. I covered most of the expenses, of course. $25,000 was a significant chunk of my savings, but seeing Allison radiant in her white dress made every penny worthwhile. "Mom, we couldn't have done this without you," Allison whispered as I helped adjust her veil before the ceremony. "Trevor and I are so grateful." After the honeymoon, they began house hunting. I was shocked when they settled on a 4-bedroom colonial in an upscale neighborhood. The house cost $450,000, far beyond what they could afford on their combined salaries. Allison was working as an administrative assistant at a law firm, making modest pay, while Trevor was still in his junior position. "Sweetheart, are you sure about this house?" I asked Allison during a private moment. "The mortgage payments will be steep." "Trevor says it's an investment in our future," she replied confidently. "He's up for a promotion soon. We'll manage." 2 weeks after they moved in, reality hit. Allison called me in tears, panicking about their first mortgage payment. Without hesitation, I offered to help temporarily until Trevor's promised promotion came through. I agreed to pay the $2,800 monthly mortgage payment while they handled utilities and other expenses. Just until Trevor gets established, I told myself. Trevor seemed genuinely grateful at first. He would personally call to thank me each month when the payment cleared. They invited me over for dinner at least twice a week in those early days. Trevor would give me tours of the home improvements they were making, seeking my advice on paint colors and furniture arrangements. I felt included, valued, appreciated. "We're so lucky to have you, Geraldine," Trevor would say, giving me a side hug as I left their home. "You're the best mother-in-law a guy could ask for." Those words meant everything to me then. After losing Robert, having this new family dynamic filled a void in my heart. I believed I was investing not just in a house, but in my future. Holidays with grandchildren, family dinners, a close-knit support system as I aged. I never imagined how quickly things would change. The shift began subtly, about a year after the wedding. Trevor received his first promotion at work, Nothing major, just a step up to marketing manager with a modest raise. But something changed in his demeanor. The dinners at their house became less frequent. When I would suggest coming over, there was always an excuse. Trevor was working late. They had plans with friends. They were too tired. "We're just so busy, Mom," Allison would say apologetically over the phone. "Maybe next week." Next week never seemed to come. When I did visit, Trevor's warm welcomes cooled to brief nods. He spent most of the time on his phone or mentioned needing to finish work in his home office. Our conversations, once flowing easily, became stilted and surface level. "How's the new position, Trevor?" I'd ask, genuinely interested. "Good, busy, lots of responsibility," he'd reply without elaboration, before changing the subject or walking away. I noticed Allison changing too. She began mirroring Trevor's behavior, speaking less about their lives and asking fewer questions about mine. When I tried to discuss the growing distance with her, she became defensive. "Mom, you're imagining things. We're just adjusting to married life and career pressures. Not everything is about you." That stung, but I swallowed my hurt. Perhaps I was being oversensitive. I continued writing the mortgage check each month, now depositing it directly into their account, with less acknowledgement each time. 6 months into Trevor's new position, I stopped by unannounced with homemade apple pie, Allison's favorite since childhood. Through the living room window, I saw them laughing on the couch with another couple. I hesitated, then rang the doorbell. The laughter inside immediately ceased. Trevor opened the door, his smile fading when he saw me. "Geraldine, we weren't expecting you." "I thought I'd surprise Allison with her favorite pie," I explained, holding up my offering. "We have friends over," he said flatly, not inviting me in. I could see Allison hovering anxiously in the background. "Maybe you could call first next time, Mom." "We're in the middle of dinner." I noticed wine glasses and a charcuterie board on their coffee table. No dinner in sight. "Of course, I'll just leave this for later," I said, handing Trevor the pie. He took it with barely a thank you and closed the door quickly. Driving home, tears blurred my vision. Something had fundamentally changed, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what or why. Still, I kept writing those mortgage checks. As Trevor's career continued to advance, his attitude toward me deteriorated further. At a rare family dinner 3 months later, he spent the evening boasting about a successful advertising campaign he'd led. "The executive team specifically commended my innovative approach," he said, chest puffed with pride. "They say I'm bringing fresh thinking that the company desperately needed." "That's wonderful," I replied sincerely. "Your hard work is paying off." Trevor gave me a condescending smile. "It's about vision, Geraldine. Some people are content to stay in the same position for decades," he said, clearly referencing my long tenure at the bank. "Others have the drive to keep climbing." Allison quickly jumped in. "Trevor's boss says he has executive potential. Isn't that amazing, Mom?" I nodded and changed the subject, but the implication hung in the air. My career was stagnant and unimpressive compared to Trevor's rising star. The final dinner before everything fell apart happened 2 months later. Trevor had received another promotion this time, to senior marketing director. They invited me over, ostensibly to celebrate. Throughout the evening, Trevor made subtle jabs. "We're thinking of remodeling the kitchen," he announced. "This outdated style doesn't work for entertaining colleagues." The kitchen had been updated just before they bought the house. It was far more modern than my own. "The neighborhood association is really strict about lawn maintenance," he continued later. "Not like your neighborhood Geraldine where people let things go." Each comment felt like a paper cut, minor but stinging. When I mentioned a community garden project I'd joined, Trevor interrupted. "That's nice for people your age having little hobbies to keep busy," he said dismissively. "I barely have time to breathe between strategic planning sessions and client meetings." I looked to Allison for support, but she simply smiled uncomfortably and remained silent. After dinner, as I prepared to leave, Trevor casually mentioned that he'd be receiving a substantial bonus soon, and that they might not need my assistance much longer. Yet the next month's mortgage check was cashed immediately, as usual, without any follow-up about that bonus or timeline for taking over the payments. The invitation to Trevor's promotion party arrived via text from Allison 3 weeks later. Trevor's been named Vice President of Marketing. The company is throwing a big celebration at the Lakeside Hotel this Saturday. We'd love you to come, Mom. My first instinct was to decline. Our relationship had deteriorated to the point where I dreaded our interactions. But refusing would only widen the gap between Allison and me. After a day of consideration, I replied that I'd be there. Great, Allison texted back. Dress is formal. This is really important to us, Mum. I spent the next day shopping for something appropriate to wear, something that would make me look successful and put together. I didn't want to embarrass Allison or give Trevor any reason to make snide comments. I settled on a navy blue dress with a modest neckline and classic pearl accessories. I spent more than I should have, $300, but felt it was necessary for the occasion. I also purchased an expensive gift, a Mont Blanc pen set that cost $500. It seemed like the type of status symbol Trevor would appreciate. I wanted to make a gesture to show I supported his success despite our strained relationship. The morning of the party, I spent extra time on my appearance. I made an appointment at the salon for a professional blowout, something I rarely indulge in. The stylist curled my silver hair into soft waves that framed my face nicely. I applied my makeup carefully, trying to look polished, but not like I was trying too hard at my age. As I drove to the hotel, I felt a flutter of hope. Perhaps this celebration would mark a turning point. Maybe seeing me make an effort bringing an expensive gift, showing genuine support for his accomplishment, would soften Trevor's attitude toward me. Maybe Allison would remember how close we once were and start bridging the gap. The Lakeside Hotel was the most prestigious venue in our city, with crystal chandeliers and marble floors in the lobby. I felt intimidated the moment I stepped inside. The ballroom was filled with elegantly dressed people, holding champagne flutes, engaged in animated conversations. A string quartet played softly in one corner. I spotted Allison in a stunning red dress standing beside Trevor, who looked immaculate in a tailored suit. They were chatting with an older man I assumed was an executive from their company. I approached hesitantly, clutching my gift bag. "Congratulations," I said when there was a pause in their conversation. Trevor barely glanced at me. "Thanks for coming, Geraldine." No hug, no warmth. He immediately turned back to the executive. As I was saying Richard, Allison gave me a quick side hug. "Hi, Mum, you look nice. Why don't you get some champagne? I need to introduce Trevor to some people." Before I could respond, they moved away, leaving me standing alone. I made my way to the bar, ordered a glass of champagne, and retreated to a corner where I could observe the room. For 30 minutes, I watched as Trevor and Allison worked the crowd, moving from group to group, laughing and engaging with everyone except me. I attempted to join conversations with people who looked approachable, introducing myself as Allison's mother, but interest in me quickly waned. One woman actually walked away mid-sentence when a more important guest arrived. I noticed how people looked at me, their eyes taking in my dress, which suddenly felt inadequate, despite its price tag my age, my obvious lack of belonging in this corporate world. I was an outsider, a reminder of humble beginnings that Trevor seemed intent on forgetting. A waiter passed with hors d'oeuvre, and I took a stuffed mushroom, grateful for something to do with my hands. The food was exquisite, I had to admit. At least that part of the evening wasn't disappointing. Finally, after what felt like hours of isolation, the company president called for everyone's attention. It was time for speeches and the formal recognition of Trevor's promotion. I found a seat at a table near the back, still holding the untouched gift bag. The president spoke glowingly of Trevor's contributions to the company, his innovative campaigns, his leadership qualities. Trevor beamed with pride beside him, Allison clutching his arm adoringly. When it was Trevor's turn to speak, I sat up straighter, hoping for some acknowledgement, some small indication that I mattered in their success story. "Thank you everyone for coming tonight," Trevor began, looking confident and comfortable at the microphone. "This is truly a milestone in my career, and I couldn't have done it without the support of many people in this room." He went on to thank his team members by name, acknowledging their specific contributions to projects that had caught the executive's attention. He thanked his mentors in the company, particularly Richard, the CEO, who had seen his potential from day one. And of course, Trevor continued, his voice softening as he turned toward Allison, "I have to thank my beautiful wife. Allison, your unwavering belief in me, your patience with the long hours, and your partnership in building our life together means everything. I wouldn't be standing here without you." Allison wiped away a tear, and the crowd awed appreciatively. I smiled, genuinely happy to see my daughter recognized, even as I felt a pang that my own contributions remained invisible. Trevor was wrapping up his speech when he suddenly paused, as if remembering something. "Oh, and I see my mother-in-law, Geraldine, is here as well." He gestured vaguely in my direction, and heads turned to look at me. I felt a momentary lift. He had noticed me after all. Then came the words that would change everything. "The mother-in-law only came because she heard there would be good food," Trevor said with a smirk. The room erupted in laughter. The sound washed over me like ice water. My face burned with humiliation as I sat frozen in my seat. Some people nearby gave me pitying glances. Others seemed to study me with new interest, as if confirming that I did indeed look like someone who would show up just for free food. I couldn't process what had just happened. This man, whose mortgage I had been paying for 3 years, had just publicly reduced me to a punchline, a greedy, pathetic old woman interested only in free meals. And worse, my daughter stood beside him, a strained smile on her face, but making no move to defend me. In that moment, I felt utterly alone in a room full of people. The gift bag on my lap suddenly felt ridiculous, a desperate attempt to buy respect from someone who had none to give. The expensive dress I'd purchased seemed like a sad costume, a pretense that I belonged in their world. I maintained my composure through sheer will, forcing my lips into a smile, while my eyes stung with unshed tears. Trevor continued his speech, moving on to his vision for the department's future, as if his cruel joke was nothing significant. But for me, time had stopped. I remembered every check I'd written, every sacrifice I'd made. Every time I'd chosen not to take a vacation or buy something for myself because I was supporting them. And for what? To be the butt of a joke at a corporate party. The applause following Trevor's speech snapped me back to reality. People returned to their conversations, the moment already forgotten by everyone except me. I watched as Trevor was surrounded by well-wishers, accepting backslaps and handshakes with a confident grin. Allison approached my table 15 minutes later, her expression a mix of embarrassment and irritation. "Mom, it was just a joke. You know how these corporate events are. Everyone's expected to be a little edgy." "It wasn't funny, Allison," I said quietly, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Don't make a scene," she whispered urgently. "This night is important for Trevor's career. More important than treating your mother with basic respect." She sighed. "Can we not do this now? I need to get back to Trevor. The CFO wants to introduce him to some people." Without waiting for my response, she walked away, leaving me alone again. I sat through another hour of the celebration, watching as everyone celebrated the man who had just humiliated me. No one approached my table. The gift bag remained unopened beside me. When I finally left, neither Trevor nor Allison noticed. The drive home passed in a blur. My mind replayed Trevor's words and the subsequent laughter over and over, each recollection bringing fresh pain. By the time I arrived home, it was nearly midnight, but sleep was impossible. I sat in my darkened living room, still wearing the expensive dress that had failed to earn me respect. For the first time, I allowed myself to cry, deep, wrenching sobs that came from a well of accumulated hurt. Years of overlooked kindness, of taken-for-granted generosity, of watching my only child drift away from me into a relationship where I was barely tolerated. As dawn broke, I found myself looking through photo albums, pictures of Alison growing up, of our close relationship before Trevor. I remembered the day she graduated college, how proud I'd been standing beside her in her cap and gown. I recalled nursing her through chickenpox, helping her prepare for her first job interview, celebrating her promotions and achievements. How had we come to this? When had my presence in her life become something shameful rather than cherished? My phone showed 3 missed calls from Alison. I wasn't ready to speak with her. Whatever excuses or half-hearted apologies she might offer wouldn't erase what had happened. Instead, I opened my banking app and stared at the scheduled mortgage payment set to process on Monday. 2 days away, $2,800, nearly $34,000 annually. Over 3 years, I had paid more than $100,000 toward their house, without complaint, without recognition, only to be mocked publicly for enjoying the food at a party. The morning light brought clarity. This wasn't just about one cruel joke. It was about a pattern of disrespect, of taking without giving, of assuming entitlement to my financial support while treating me as an inconvenient obligation. Monday morning, I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit and drove to my bank. The branch manager, Susan, greeted me warmly. We'd worked together for 15 years. "I need to cancel an automatic payment," I told her, my voice steady with newfound resolve. "Of course, Geraldine. Which one? The mortgage payment for my daughter and son-in-law's house." Susan looked surprised. "The $2,800 monthly payment, are they taking over?" "No," I said simply. "I'm just done paying it." As she processed my request, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Guilt about how this would affect Alison Payne at the broken relationship, but also unexpectedly relief. For 3 years, I had been buying my way into a family dynamic that devalued me. No more. "Is everything okay?" Susan asked gently, handing me the confirmation of cancellation. "It will be," I replied, tucking the paper into my purse. It's time I remembered my own worth. Walking out of the bank, I stood taller. The mortgage wasn't the only automatic payment I had set up for them. There was also their car insurance and the monthly deposit into their vacation fund. I returned to Susan's desk and cancelled those too. The guilt resurfaced briefly. What if this harmed Alison too much? But then I remembered her silent complicity at the party, her failure to defend me, her prioritization of Trevor's career over her mother's dignity. She had made her choice. Now I was making mine. By noon, everything was done. I had reclaimed nearly $3,500 monthly, money that I would now invest in myself, my home, my future. The phone in my purse buzzed continuously, with texts and calls from Alison. But I wasn't ready to engage yet. I needed time to strengthen my resolve, to prepare for the confrontation that would inevitably come. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at a nice restaurant, alone, but not lonely. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of liberation. The weight of supporting an ungrateful son-in-law had lifted, leaving room for something new: self-respect. The reaction came faster than I anticipated. Tuesday evening, my doorbell rang repeatedly, followed by aggressive knocking. When I opened the door, Trevor stood there, his face flushed with anger, Alison hovering anxiously behind him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Trevor demanded without preamble. The mortgage payment bounced, the insurance cancelled. What game are you playing? I remained calm. No game, Trevor. I'm simply no longer paying for your lifestyle. You can't just stop without warning. We have obligations based on your commitment. Funny, I don't recall signing any agreement. It was a gift, not an obligation. And gifts can stop when the giver chooses. Trevor's face contorted with disbelief. Is this about what I said at the party? It was a joke, for God's sake. Everyone makes mother-in-law jokes. May we come in, Mum? Alison interjected, clearly trying to defuse the situation. We should talk about this rationally. I stepped aside, allowing them into my living room. Trevor paced, while Alison perched nervously on the edge of the sofa. I've been paying your mortgage for 3 years, I said evenly. That's over $100,000 in support, not counting the other expenses I've covered. During that time, you've grown increasingly disrespectful. Trevor and you, Alison, have allowed it. That's not fair, Alison protested. Trevor appreciates everything you've done. So much appreciation that he publicly humiliated me at his promotion party, I asked. Made me the butt of a joke in front of his entire company. Trevor's anger shifted to calculation before my eyes. His tone softened. Geraldine, I apologize if my comment hurt you. Corporate humor can be a bit harsh sometimes. I didn't mean anything by it. This isn't just about the party, I continued. It's about the consistent disregard for my feelings, the cancellation of dinners, the condescending comments about my career, my home, my hobbies. The assumption that I would indefinitely subsidize your lifestyle without basic courtesy in return. Alison began to cry. Mom, we can't afford the mortgage on our own yet. Trevor's raise doesn't kick in for another month, and even then it will be tight. Perhaps you should have thought of that before allowing your husband to mock the person paying your bills. I replied, my voice gentle but firm. Trevor switched tactics, entirely moving from anger to pleading. Geraldine, please reconsider. We're family. Families support each other through rough patches and misunderstandings. Yes, they do, I agreed. But respect goes both ways. I've been treated like an ATM, not a family member. What do you want? Trevor asked bluntly. An apology. Fine, I'm sorry, truly. It was a thoughtless comment. What I want is dignity, I replied, and I've realized I need to claim that for myself because no one else will give it to me. The conversation cycled through more arguments, tears, and accusations. Alison was caught in the middle, torn between her husband and her mother. At one point, she took my hands in hers. Mom, please, we'll lose the house. You might, I acknowledged. Or you might need to adjust your expectations and live within your means. Either way, it's not my responsibility anymore. They left 2 hours later, Trevor sullen and Alison tearful. The following weeks were difficult. Alison called daily, alternating between anger and pleading. Trevor sent a formal written apology that read like a business letter. I remained resolute. 3 months later, a for sale sign appeared in front of their colonial. They had decided to downsize to a townhouse they could actually afford. Alison barely spoke to me during this time, her texts brief and factual rather than emotional. I felt the loss keenly. Despite everything, she was my only child, my connection to the future. Had I been too harsh, too unforgiving? These questions kept me awake at night. But whenever I wavered, I remembered Trevor's smirking face at the microphone, and my resolve strengthened. 6 months after the party, my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. When I opened it, Alison stood alone on my porch, looking tired but composed. "Can we talk, Mum?" she asked quietly. I welcomed her in, noticing immediately that something had changed. She seemed more like the Alison I had known before, my thoughtful, kind-hearted daughter rather than Trevor's defensive wife. We sat in the kitchen, where we'd shared countless conversations over the years. I made tea the familiar ritual, easing some of the tension between us. "I owe you an apology," Alison began, surprising me. I should have stood up for you at the party. I should have said something when Trevor made that comment. Why didn't you? I asked the question that had haunted me for months. She stared into her tea, gathering her thoughts. I was caught up in it all. Trevor's success, the important people around us. I wanted so badly to fit into that world. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with tears. But that's no excuse for letting someone hurt you, especially when that someone is my husband and the person being hurt is my mother. Something broke open between us, a dam of unspoken hurt giving way to honest communication. For the next 2 hours, we talked more genuinely than we had in years. Alison admitted that Trevor had changed with each promotion, becoming more status-conscious and less the man she had fallen in love with. Moving to the townhouse has been hard, she confessed. Trevor blames me, sometimes says if I had handled you better, we could have kept the house. But honestly, Mom, it's been good for us too. We're living within our means for the first time. It's freeing in a way. And your relationship? I asked cautiously. We're working on it, she said. The financial stress revealed some cracks I hadn't noticed before. Trevor's not a bad person, but success changed him, made him forget where he came from, what really matters. By the time she left, something had been repaired between us. Not completely. Trust takes time to rebuild, but a beginning. She hugged me tightly at the door. I missed you, Mom. Really missed you. I missed you too, sweetheart. Over the following months, Alison visited regularly. Sometimes we just talked. Other times we engaged in our old traditions, baking together, working in my garden, browsing antique shops. Trevor remained distant but civil when our paths crossed. The real breakthrough came at Christmas, 9 months after the incident. They invited me to dinner at their townhouse, a modest but lovely home they had decorated with care. Trevor met me at the door, looking different somehow, less polished, more authentic. Geraldine, he said, then corrected himself. Mom, thank you for coming. During dinner, he finally offered the apology I had been waiting for. Not scripted, not strategic, but heartfelt. I lost myself for a while there, he admitted. Got caught up in impressing people who didn't really matter at the expense of someone who did. He looked me directly in the eyes. What I said at that party was unforgivable. Not just the words, but what they represented. A fundamental lack of respect and gratitude. I'm truly sorry. I believed him. People can change when life humbles them. Trevor had experienced that humbling, and it had restored something essential in him. I forgive you, Trevor, I said, meaning it. We all make mistakes. That night marked a new beginning for our family, one built on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. They never asked me for money again, and I never offered. Our relationship became healthier for having weathered this storm. As for me, the experience transformed my life in unexpected ways. With the money I'd been spending on their mortgage, I finally took the European trip I'd always dreamed of. I joined a support group for women rebuilding after relationship betrayals, finding community and purpose in helping others navigate similar journeys. Most importantly, I learned to value myself, to set boundaries, to require respect, to believe in my worth beyond what I could provide financially. That lesson came at a high price, but it has enriched every aspect of my life since. Today, 4 years after that fateful party, we gather regularly as a family. There's a granddaughter now, little Emma, who brings us all joy. Trevor has found success at a smaller company where the culture better matches his true values. Alison has started her own business, something she might never have attempted if they had remained in that expensive house, tied to a lifestyle they couldn't really afford. Sometimes the most painful moments in our lives lead to the greatest growth. That public humiliation forced me to confront patterns I had been enabling for years. It taught me that real love doesn't require you to diminish yourself. That generosity without boundaries isn't really generosity at all. It's self-erasure. Sometimes you have to lose something to find yourself again. And that was the greatest gift I inadvertently received from that promotion party. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt in the moment but ultimately led to healing? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life lessons. Remember, setting healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for genuine relationships. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honor your worth in every relationship in your life.